Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. So this is just a little sit-down chit-chat video really quickly. Um, of course, I'm going to talk about grief, right? I'm going to talk about what is your earliest memory of grief and how does it affect you today? Because when I think about it, during my own grief journey, when I first suffered the loss of my son, that was like my first real moving, shaking, life altering loss in my life, right? And nobody taught me how to grieve. um, and then as I look around to my family and my friends, grief is not really talked about. How to grieve is not talked about. It seems like grief is a taboo subject. Um, Within, I guess, the United States, maybe not everywhere, but it just seems like it's taboo. Like everyone is expected to keep it together or at some point get over their grief or get over the loss. And it's like, how can you get over the loss of loving someone? How can you get over the loss of a prominent figure in your life? Like, I don't really understand it. I don't know why grief is such a taboo subject, because at some point in everybody's life, they're going to suffer a loss. And as long as you love, right, you're going to grieve. So it's like, why isn't grief talked about? Why isn't how to deal with it talked about? I don't understand it. Um, like, grief can drive you crazy. Losing someone can send you into a depression, sadness, like all of these things. It doesn't really seem to be a big community for those of us who are grieving. Not saying that we're like shunned or pushed to the side or forgotten about, but it sort of kind of feels that way. It's like, once again, why isn't grief talked about, and why isn't how to deal with grief talked about? Um, as I think back to my earliest memory of death and dying and grief in my family, um, I was a child in like the single digits. I'll just estimate that maybe I was around like seven or eight. And at that time, I had a cousin who probably was in his 20s, and he passed away from some type of cancer. I wasn't close to the cousin. Um, I just remember like his death being talked about around me. That's all I know. Um, I didn't go to the funeral. How old was I when I went to my first funeral? I don't know. Maybe a teenager. But then also I remember maybe like around the age of 12, my great grandmother passed away, and I went to the funeral home with my grandmother um, to view the body. And once again, like, nobody really talked about what was happening, and I was just like there, a kid, just watching whatever happened around me, right? So when it was my turn to step up to the plate of this grieving person, of losing my son, it shattered me. Now, not to say that it wouldn't have shattered me if I was somebody talked to me about grief, but maybe it would have changed a little bit. Maybe I would have felt like there were people that I could go to, because the reality of it is, when I was going through my grief journey, like the early stages of it, I felt like I couldn't grieve properly. Not that I didn't know how to, or in addition to me not knowing how to, I felt like I couldn't grieve the way I wanted to grieve because of expectations other people put on me about how I should grieve, if that makes sense. Um, it's like things that people should tell you about grieving, right? It's like, well, when you suffer the loss of somebody, is going to hurt. You're going to feel these feelings. You know, somebody should have talked to me about like the 5 stages of grief. Just that there is a community around you, that there is no time frame on grief, that you have to grieve however you grieve, that grief doesn't look like what you think it looks like. Grief looks like you not being able to sleep at night. Grief looks like maybe you hoarding the things of that person who passed away. Grief looks like all of these different things. Grief looks like you just in the middle of Target and just busting out crying. Grief is very complex. Grief is different for everybody. You know, for some people, grief may look like you out here partying and at clubs. Grief may look like you making a lot of reckless decisions. Grief may look like you just turning to God and being in the church and your faith increasing. Grief looks different for everybody else, but it's not talked about, and it should be. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to say I built this platform, but that's one of the reasons why I believe God gifted me with this platform, to help spread awareness about grief, to help give people the permission to grieve how they want to grieve, to help people know and understand that you're not alone, because you're not alone. Although going through the grief process, it is lonely. One of the reasons why it's lonely is because it's your personal journey. Nobody can really pick you up out of how you're feeling. Nobody can save you. Nobody can rescue you, right? However, when you're enveloped around love, when you're enveloped around community, when you're enveloped around people who care, it helps to lift you up. For anybody who is watching this who does not have a community of loved ones, tap in with me, leave a comment so that I can connect with you. You don't have to be alone. Like, my prayer and my hope is that this channel grows into a community, maybe where, you know, we can meet up, where we can have Zoom calls, where we can have a Facebook group, where we can just connect with each other, where we don't have to be alone. Because the reality is, the longer we live, the more people we're going to lose, the more we're going to grieve, right? And we don't have to do it alone. Like, we don't. I don't know. Once again, I don't know why nobody talks about grief. I don't know why it's such a taboo subject, but conversations will be had, and it's going to start with me. So on that note, I'm gonna wrap this video up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment in the comment section. Most importantly, share this video, and I pray that it helped you. And I'll be talking to you soon. Bye.